Hi, I'd like to show you a game that I played from the UK Chess Challenge Gigafinal from last year. It was against P.Weller, and in this game I played a sideline of the Barrymore Gambit, which could be very dangerous for black if they don't know what to do against it, which is often the case, as it's hardly ever seen. So I've had very good results with this line and actually beaten another strong player, 200 rated player in the Halifax British Rapid Play a year ago before that, and I've drawn to a couple of IMs and GMs with it as well. So e4, e6, d4, d5, e5. So the starting point of the French advance variation. So c5. So black's main idea in the French advance is to target the d4 pawn. Moves like knight c6 and queen to b6. So white defends with c3, knight c6, knight f3, and now queen b6. So we've seen that now black is applying a lot of pressure to the d4 pawn. At the moment he's not threatening anything, but his plan in the future would be to play knight to h6 and knight to f5. So the line I played here is bishop d3, which is more of a gambit line. So as c takes d4, c takes d4, bishop d7. Knight takes d4 would lose on the spot here because of knight takes d4, simply just winning a piece. Queen can't recapture the knight because of bishop b5 check, and white's just picking up the queen next move. So a common trap in this line. Bishop d7, and now white just castles, and now black can take on d4. And now the main line in the Barrymore Gambit goes knight takes d4, queen takes d4, knight c3, where black can either take on e5 or play a6. a6 is supposed to be better. Queen takes e5 is also okay, but gives white quite a lot of counterplay after rook e1. Now queen b8 is the best move, with the idea of going bishop to d6. Now white regains a pawn, knight takes d5. Bishop d6 is not been played, and it's at least a very sharp play. Like I said, a6 is also another possibility for black here, which tends to give black a good position. The line I recommend is knight b d2, which is quite a tricky move actually, because in the game, if they just play sort of like a nothing move, like rook c8, then white's just going to take on d4, and after queen takes d4, knight f3, queen goes back to b6 and then puts knight to g5, which happened in the game, and it'll be threatening queen f3 or queen h5, and immediately threatening knight takes h7, which could be very dangerous. It doesn't look very dangerous, but grabbing a bishop on f8 can often lead to a very good attack for white. The main sort of move against this line is supposed to be bishop to c5, and now b4 is the move for white, so sacking another pawn. Now knight takes f3 check, knight takes f3, and now queen takes b4. If bishop takes b4, white just gets good play here after rook b1, so immediately pinning the bishop to the queen and threatening a3, trying to win a piece. And after queen a5, a3 can be played, and bishop can't take on a3 because of rook a1, winning the bishop. So bishop will have to come back to e7 or f8. f8 doesn't really make much sense, and now white can regain a pawn with rook takes b7. So white's only a pawn down in this position, he's getting a lot of play for it. We see that all his pieces are pretty much developed. The bishop's about to come into the game, the knight could enter on g5, the rook's on the 7th rank, which could be very dangerous, and it's hard to see how black's going to develop his pieces. So after knight h6, and bishop could take on h6, leaving white with a very bad pawn structure. And also, it's going to be hard for black to castle, because even if after this castle, the bishop on d7 is going to be on pre. So the better move is queen takes b4 for black, where rook b1 is supposed to be the better move, but black can simply play queen a4 here, which is a good move. And the idea is that after rook takes b7, queen can take on d1, and quite all of white's attacking chances are pretty much gone, and so black's just going to be a pawn up in the endgame. So if queen takes b4, queen e2 is a lot better move. And now this does threaten rook b1, seeing as now there's no queen a4, and now we're going to threaten to take the b7 pawn. So black often plays b6 here, and now white can just get on with his knight g5 plan. The ideas of queen to f3, queen to h5, or even knight takes h7. So for example, if knight h6, the knight could just take on h7 immediately, and you see this doesn't look like a very good move for white, but bishop takes h6 is threatened, and after g takes, the knight can come to f6, which lands the knight on a very nice outpost for white. And after g6, then queen to f3 looks extremely dangerous, and after knight h6, queen to f6, which was just similar to the game. So going back, my opponent played rook c8. So I guess it looks pretty logical. Puts the rook on half open or not the open file, and maybe threatens bishop b5 possible ideas, and maybe knight into c2. But now white just plays a couple of forced moves. Knight takes d4, queen takes d4, knight f3, queen back to b6. If a move like queen to b4 isn't very good either, because white can just kick the queen, which sort of allows time, because the pawn could be quite useful on b4 for white, so this just helps white. And then if queen to g4 is the other alternative, white can just play h3, and after queen h5 get king h2. This is quite dangerous for white now, because now g4 threatens to win the queen. So queen b6 is the best move. Now knight g5, getting on with it, otherwise white's just going to be a pawn down. So already we can see that the queen prepares to enter by f3 or h5, depending on where black puts his pieces. So in the game, my opponent played g6, cutting out the idea of knight takes h7, and also stopping queen h5. And I guess this looks reasonable, because after queen f3, knight h6 defends the f7 pawn. But now I guess what he missed is after queen f6, the rook is now forced to come to g8, and now knight takes h7, which also looks like a not very good move, but it does have its threats. It's threatening knight takes f8 straight away, and after black recaptures, then bishop can take on h6. But yeah, you might say that why can't black just play bishop g7? This looks like it's getting a fine position, because save queen now has to come back to f4. Because if he went to f3, then e5 pawn drops. Black surely doing fine here. It's level on material, but his knight looks very badly placed. The knight could probably come to f5 here, maybe bishop b5. So black's doing quite well. His pawn's weak as well. But white has a great move here. If you want to pause the video, then you can. But I'm going to continue. So the move I played, which was I've had 2 games of this line actually, which is completely winning, bishop to g5. So the immediate threat is just queen to e7 check. It's pretty checkmate. It's pretty obvious. And the idea of bishop g5 is now the queen cannot be taken. So after bishop takes f6, we see the knight coming to f6, and now all the king moves lose. For example, king f8. That's the worst thing. Knight takes d7 check, winning back the queen. And also the knight sometimes. And king e7. Then just knight takes d5 check, also winning back the queen. And after takes, and bishop takes h6, so black's just going to be piece up. After king d8, same thing. Knight takes d5 check, king back to e8. Knight takes b6, attacking the rook. A takes b6, knight takes h6. And white is again a pawn and a bishop up here. So after bishop g5, the queen is the queen cannot be taken. So my opponent played queen b4, as he has to defend the e7 square. And now it's quite a nice set of moves here. And now it's just a3. the idea is just kicking a queen, trying to get it off the defence of the e7 square. And once again, the bishop could not take the queen because white can just take it back with the knight of check and then take the queen on b4. So queen came back to c5. Now white played b4, attacking the queen. And also my queen can't be taken either because I go knight check and pick up the queen once again. So now the queen has to go all the way back to f8. So you have the square that stays on the defence of the e7. And now I can just simplify here, just a piece of knight takes queen. So again, now threatening checkmate. So bishop takes queen, e takes f6, and after rook takes f8, bishop takes h6, and my opponent resigned here. So as I'm just a whole bishop up in this position. So it's a very nice game, I think. I fully recommend that you try this line. This might be bd2 in this position. It's very dangerous, and certainly I've played it against many black opponents who don't know how to handle this sort of position. Another way of actually playing it for black is go retreat with knight c6, but then white can just play knight b3. And the idea is just to get very quick development, bishop e3 attacking the queen, and then rook c1, and even knight g5 at a later stage, depending on where black puts his pieces. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and well, goodbye for now.